we're going to take a look at past participles now, or past participle phrases. And this is where it gets a little bit more tricky, and you'll see why in a second when I explain what a past participle is. The past participle is the form of the verb that you would use with the following. So it's the form of the verb you would use with had been, or have been, or has been. Now, for regular verbs, that's not too difficult. It's just ed at the end. So if we had the verb announce, for example, you would say has been announced. Or if we had something like walk, again you just add ed on the end. So the dog, let's say the dog has been walked. Ignore that been, something went wrong, horribly wrong. So for regular verbs, which is a fair amount of verbs, it's just ed, and then you can test it by saying has been announced or have been announced. So the girls have been announced, the dog has been walked. So that's how to do it with regular verbs. However, there are also things in English called irregular verbs, and irregular verbs don't really have that kind of easiness with the ed. So, for example, if we had build as our verb and we wanted to make it into a past participle, you would need to think about it. You would say, okay, the house has been built, right? So, has been built. And you'll see why I'm putting the parentheses around has been in a minute. Some other examples, you could use cut. So cut is such and such has been cut, right? So it's exactly the same. The past participle is exactly the same. And generally speaking, even with the regular verbs, you'll end with either d or ed or t, and there's a couple of other ones that I don't remember. Right? But the easiest test is just to use has been or have been or had been and then use that form of the verb. Okay? So weave, for example, the curtains had been woven from silk. Okay? So we know that weave is then woven because had been woven. Which actually reminds me, the other usual thing for an irregular verb for the past participle would be an en, like in woven. So let's look at a simple sentence, a level 1, and then add this new type of modifier to it. Okay, so branches lay on the ground. This is our level 1, this is our complete sentence. Lay is the verb. Branches is the subject because they're doing the laying, and it makes sense. Branches lay on the ground makes sense. Now, even though we're doing a different type of free modifier, the rules and the slots are exactly the same. So we can put it here, we can put it in here, or we could put it here. Okay? So the rules are exactly the same. It's just a different type of modifier. So we could have, for example, well, let's look at the examples. So in this example, we have a regular verb, scatter, and our level 2 is scattered by the wind. Okay? And it's giving more information about our level 1. So it's exactly the same as before. So scattered by the wind, branches. So branches is what the level 2 is referring to. and then we put it in various spots. So this is in slot 1, this one is in slot 2, and this one is in slot 3. So exactly the same principle as before, just using a past participle. Now a couple of things. One is that if we had an irregular verb, this would still work. So if we had fall as our verb, we could say fallen from a tree, branches lay on the ground, or branches, comma, fallen from a tree, lay on the ground. Same thing. Secondly, if you remember, I told you that you could work out what a past participle was by saying had been and seeing if it makes sense. So can we say had been scattered? Yeah, we can. Okay, so that means we're good. But here's the important part. We don't use the had been in the actual phrase. So we don't say has been scattered by the wind. We just say scattered by the wind. So the had been is just a little test for you to see what the verb form is, but you don't use it in the final reckoning.